Welcome to another Sad Boys book review. My name is Dusty, and today I'll be reviewing The Running Man by Stephen King under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. This is the final of the four-part Bachman book series that I started back in April of 2024, that I read in April of 2024, and yeah, so we're finally done with the Bachman books, and I can finally move on to the other books that I read in 2024. So, this was an interesting one. This was another one that I was aware of prior to reading it, but only really because of the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger back in, the 80s? I don't know. I've never seen the movie. All I really knew was that it was wildly different from the book. So I didn't really know what to expect other than it being another book about some sort of death game. Needless to say, it was not quite what I was expecting. But that being said, it was enjoyable. I had fun reading it. It was a relatively quick read, and if Stephen King is to be believed in his foreword in the Bachman books, he wrote that whole book in the span of like 72 hours. And if I'm being honest, it does kind of show. The pacing is a little all over the place. Like, I feel like it was a book that was originally supposed to be maybe 400 pages, but then ended up only being 270 or whatever. So it's a bit strange in the pacing department. I thought it was enjoyable. My only real issues with it, not to really go into spoilers at all, so I'll try to avoid that, but the second half of the book it's a bit of a tonal shift from the first half of how like they establish the general pacing of the book and the general goal of the main character, Ben Richards. I don't know. It's very hard to review because without going too much into plot details, other than just saying, yeah, it was a pretty good book. I enjoyed it. It was a little more out there, I guess, relative to the other three, because it just. I don't know. It felt like Stephen King wrote it quickly, and I do think I enjoy it more than Roadwork and Rage, but at least not a lot more than Roadwork. I definitely think this was an idea that probably should have spent some more time in the oven. Maybe had him go through it, flesh it out a little more, because once again, it's not bad, but I just kind of found myself in the second half wanting more to happen. It felt like there was a scene that was supposed to just be a scene, and then he dragged that scene out for the rest of the book, and then suddenly everything was just kind of coming to a climax, and then boom, the book's over. And I do like the ending well enough, at least in terms of like the final page, how the book explicitly ends, which is relatively abrupt, and I think that's fine given the nature of the book itself and like the plot. But so I like the ending, but the setup to the ending felt a little too much of that. Like when Stephen King does that shocking just to be shocking factor, it felt like it was a little too much of that instead of it feeling a little more organic, because it just kind of hits you with this sort of, for lack of a better term, I don't want to call it like a realization or like I wouldn't even call it a twist either. You just get hit with some information, and you're just like, oh, okay, and it just feels very. It's like one of the biggest cruxes of the ending, is like the revelation, I guess, for lack of a better term. It's one of the biggest cruxes of the ending, and for me personally, it felt undercooked and fell a little flat for me. But it's what leads to the ending itself, and like I said, I do like the ending itself, but that build to it felt very weird. It felt very forced, and like I said, the whole second half of the book had a really strange amount of pacing to it, especially with the first half, because the first half was very exciting. It was very fast paced. There was a lot of adrenaline moments, a lot of really fun back and forths, a huge amount of cunning. Because like the general premise, I guess I should probably establish that Ben Richards is living in this dystopian world, and he goes to this building where it's like the competition building center, and you get chosen. You take some tests, and you get chosen to be in these different game shows that most of them are relatively deadly because he's desperate for money because his baby is sick and needs formula, and his wife can only do so much, and they're poor and they need help. He got fired from his job because he's a hothead, and so he gets chosen to be in The Running Man, which is a death game where you have to survive for as long as possible. It's televised. There are hunters that are trying to hunt you down and kill you. The audience, so to say, which is the whole population, is a part of the game because if they can call in tips, and if those tips they call in lead to a kill of a contestant, then they get a cash prize for it. But then on the other hand, you also earn money for each hour you stay alive. I think it's past a certain point. I think you get a lump sum for the first 48 hours or something like that, and then every hour after that it adds to that lump sum. I think that's how it went. And obviously, it's got a 100% kill rate. The Running Man does. So that money that you're earning is not necessarily going to you. So he's doing it to have it go to his family. That's his general goal. And he's trying to... The book is him trying to survive the Running Man for as long as possible. And like I said, the first half it's super frenetic. The pacing is very quick. Everything's moving quickly because it's a death game. He's constantly on the run. So the pacing really pays dividends to that. And like I said, so the second half, it goes away from that. It's still... there's still the in the back of your mind the fear of the death game and him trying to survive it, but it changes in a way that I can't really get into without spoilers. It changes in a way that while the main goal is still there, the general premise is still there, the way in which it's continuing has changed, and it's the best way I can put it is it's because it's the time the amount of time we're spending has slowed down. Instead of it being like days, which I don't even think it's that many days, all things considered, it goes down to hours and minutes instead of focusing on like days. It's not the best way to put it, but it's the best way I can kind of explain it without going into spoilers. So the pacing slows down a lot. Everything kind of changes, and it leads to a climax that I felt like was probably going to happen, but not as quickly as it was going to happen. And so, like I said, it does feel like a rushed book, if I'm being perfectly honest. So that's a bit of a negative for me. But all in all, I did enjoy it. I did like the ending for the most part. I like the premise a lot, and I think most of the execution was good. So it's probably my second favorite of the Bachman book collection, but it almost feels like it's by default. Not because Rage and Roadwork were bad, but because The Running Man was just slightly better. I don't really know how else to put it other than that. So, with that, I'm giving The Running Man a 7 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I think it's a good book. I think most people probably would like it more than something like Roadwork or Rage. But if you're getting the Bachman books and you're wanting to just read it, and you're not a fan of Stephen King, you may only come out of it liking The Long Walk. Hell, you may come out of it only liking The Running Man or only liking Roadwork. It's kind of hard to say because, everyone's different. But I don't know. It was a weird one for me, to say the least. But I don't know. If you're into the weird kind of Stephen King, dystopian, death game kind of thing, then check out The Running Man. You might like it. Who knows? But that'll do it for me. Thank you everyone for listening, and I will catch you in the next review. Take care.